Hi, I'm attorney Gregory Dell, joined by attorney Stephen Jessup, and today we're going to talk about Northwestern Mutual and disability insurance appeals for a long-term disability claim denial. And Stephen, this video is specifically for employer-provided group disability insurance policies that are governed by ERISA. And we've done tons of videos about what ERISA is and some of those requirements that have to be complied with. And in this particular video, what I want to offer to people is some tips about how to go about handling this denial, what they should expect, and some of our experiences from handling these long-term disability appeals with Northwestern Mutual. Right off the bat though, Stephen, in terms of you've handled appeals, there's 45 different long-term disability insurance companies out there, and you've handled thousands of appeals. When someone calls you and says, look, I've been denied by Northwestern Mutual, what are you expecting in that situation as compared to other companies that you usually receive denial letters from?
Well, usually I'm expecting that's an individually purchased private policy, because Northwestern, they do these group products, but they are not, the biggest one that we'll see. They're not like a Cigna and a Prudential. But anytime you hear a denial from there's a denial from Northwestern Mutual, outside of in these group policies, if there's a pre-existing condition issue or something like that, generally my mindset is there probably are some glaring things missing from your claim, because Northwestern Mutual is very, very thorough in their review. So if there's been a denial, my mindset is already that they've done a pretty comprehensive review of everything in your file prior to rendering that decision, as opposed to some other companies that you just see as almost like a matter of course they deny an initial claim or they deny a claim at some point. So when Northwestern Mutual, is thrown into that mix, my mind is already thinking, what are they not seeing in this file? What is actually missing? Because I know that they have done a pretty thorough and good review.
So you're not going to get your typical Cigna 2-page denial letter from Northwestern Mutual?
No, you're going to get a long one, and it's going to be very detailed.
Okay. So what are the requirements? Someone who's been denied, obviously never been through this, can they go ahead and sue right away, or what are their options to deal with this denial with Northwestern Mutual?
Yeah, no, they can't. These group policies you get through your employer are governed by ERISA, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, which we talk about all over, on our website. And under that area of the law, you have to go through a mandatory administrative appeal process. So you have to file an appeal back to Northwestern Mutual explaining why they got it wrong, essentially. That's the heart and idea of an appeal, that they just re-review. It goes to an appeal department. So someone who's never touched your file, or doctors who've never reviewed your records, whatever the case may be, are going to take a second look to see if the people in that denied your claim made the right call. The most important thing on this is you only get one shot at it. And if your appeal's denied, your record is closed. The claim file, the administrative record is closed, and the administrative record is what a judge would ultimately look at in trial. So your appeal is really your last opportunity to present all the information you want to Northwestern Mutual to establish that you're still entitled to these benefits.
So just so we're clear, when you say the record's closed, at what point does it close, and does that mean you cannot provide any additional information at any point in time?
For all intents and purposes, yes. I mean, there are every now and then some nuances where courts will allow some, but for all intents and purposes, it's always safe to assume nothing else is coming in. And that is going to close in the final denial. So once they've issued the final denial of your appeal, so they're denying your appeal, they'll generally say in the letter, you've exhausted all administrative remedies, no further review will take place, you have the right to bring a lawsuit under Section 1332 of ERISA, and it'll actually explain to you or tell you that at this point the only thing available to you is that lawsuit.
Okay. Now, I think you mentioned earlier that when a person gets denied under the ERISA regulations, they have 180 days to appeal a long-term disability denial, and that's a firm 180 days, whereas if you don't submit your appeal within 180 days and potentially put it in on day 181, you could be forever barred from taking any other action and even waive your right to even file a lawsuit because you haven't gone through the steps of doing an appeal. So it's super important that you take immediate action if you've been denied, and that you don't delay, because this is usually not the kind of thing where you can get around those 180 days. I want to shift gears though, Stephen, and go into now the steps that we usually take so that people understand what this appeal process is like, because some people think it's, I got denied, and you send back a letter and you say, I got denied, please reconsider, let someone else look at it. And sometimes the disability insurance companies lead you to believe that that's what it is. It's one person denied you, but maybe the next person at the company will feel differently. And it's never as simple as that. So I want people to understand what's involved with this, what kind of things should they look for, what should go into an appeal, and why at the end of the day we come up with these 20 to 40 page appeal letters with thousands of pages or hundreds of pages of additional supporting information when we do appeals, as opposed to just sending in a 2-page letter saying why you disagree with somebody. So the first thing, Stephen, that I know you do is that you request a claim file. What's the claim file, and what are you looking for when you get that documentation for free from Northwestern Mutual?
Yeah, so the claim file is everything in your file, anything that Northwestern Mutual has created as part of its review, or anything you or your doctors have submitted as part of your claim. So they have to turn everything over. So you were able to see the reports of the medical, doctors that said you could work. You're able to see any surveillance, all those types of things. You're afforded that. And then it's a matter of processing that and seeing where your next steps need to go in attacking the denial. They have up to 30 days to provide that. So generally speaking, while we're waiting on that, we're already requesting the medical records. We're seeing what can be done for additional testing, depending on what the cause of disability is, what the occupation is, what's the definition of disability. There's various different scenarios that run there. So we're starting to gather our own information and build additional information to put in part of that appeal and make part of the record. So your claim file is really the basis, and a lot of people don't think to get that. I think more people are becoming savvy, whether they're finding our information online, and they're contacting us, and they've already requested that claim file. So the claim file really is going to give you an in-depth look, as if you were a third party, just kind of watching over what Northwestern Mutual is doing internally leading up to your denial.
So when dealing with the appeal, obviously you have this claim file, but there's so many different directions you're going to go. At that point, it's like looking at a map and going on a road trip, and there's 7 different ways to get to the destination that you want to get to. And obviously, the basis for the denial is going to have to be in that claim file. And the definition of disability is going to be critical, because you have to know what you're trying to prove. Is it an own occupation definition of disability? Is it any occupation definition of disability? How do they define occupation? Was it the duties of your own occupation? Was it the duties in a national economy? Is it any gainful occupation? Is it an occupation with an income component? But before you attack the vocational type skills for the occupation, how important is it to obtain clear definition of what the restrictions and limitations are, and how do you go about doing that?
It's really the most important. I mean, that's the biggest aspect of any disability claim are the restrictions and limitations. From a physical perspective, if it's a physical condition that's prohibiting you from working, do you look at additional testing like functional capacity evaluations that are meant to show what your actual physical ability for work over a 40-hour work week is? If there's something where there's complaints of cognition and the ability to concentrate, focus, think, stemming from a host of different medical conditions, neuropsychological testing, or if you purely have a mental health condition, you're going on depression, anxiety, we have geared, questionnaires we'll send to mental health providers that really get to the heart of how the problems and the restrictions that you're experiencing, the symptoms, are affecting various aspects of work and workplace setting and things like that. So getting an idea of what the medical problem is will then kind of set the stage as to what you need to kind of bolster and build up. Because generally speaking, Northwestern Mutual is not denying your claim because they don't think you have the condition. They say, yes, we think you are diagnosed with XYZ. We just don't think it raises to a level that would result in impairment and prevent you from working. So it's really the art of trying to build the medical file to establish that the diagnosis is resulting in a disability under the policy.
And whenever Northwestern Mutual does a denial, they almost always do a file medical review where they hire either their own doctor or a nurse or an outside company to review a file, or they do an examination of the claimant and say, we don't find that you have the restrictions and limitations to support the definition of disability. And in the claim file, which you were discussing earlier, you always have copies of those reports. I mean, you absolutely have to, and if they're not there, you have to immediately request them. How do you work with those reports and get treating physicians to rebut those reports and further provide any additional medical evidence to rebut those reports?
Mm-hmm. You know, one of the things I always usually start with when I'm reaching out to doctors, to get extra information, it's no surprise most doctors do not like getting correspondence from attorneys. They probably didn't like having to deal with the insurance company in the first place. So I also like to explain to the doctors that under this area of the law, they're not going to be called to, testify in court. They can't be deposed. That ultimately the only thing that would ever be considered if this goes to court are their written opinions, whether in their records or in extra documents and claim forms, questionnaires, things like that. So I like to put that context. And then doctors, I would say, have enough ego that they really get offended when someone who's never examined their patient, just looked at a stack of paperwork, says that, doctor, you may have seen this person treating, but you got it wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. So it's a matter of, with the doctors working, letting them know, hey, it's open season. You put all your opinions in writing. You don't have to worry about a defense attorney trying to discredit you or question your medical expertise, opinion, whatever the case may be. And since Northwestern is going to ask their reviewing doctors questions, specific questions, I like to create, counter questions to those for the doctor, and work with the doctor on responding to that. I do find that a lot of doctors do take offense to these independent peer reviews and the questioning of their opinions. So if you kind of, massage that annoyance with the insurance industry and their ego, you can usually get some really good stuff in response to what Northwestern Mutual's doctors had to say.
And Stephen, getting that what we call our custom attending physician statements, where we ask specific restrictions and limitations related to the definition of disability from the doctor and clarify anything that the reviewing doctor hired by Northwestern Mutual had said, a lot of people don't realize it, but this is your doctor's testimony in trial. Because even though we're just putting it down on paper right now in the appeal, like you said earlier, if you lose the appeal, the administrative record's closed, it's likely your doctor is never going to have the opportunity to testify in court, because that only happens under extremely rare circumstances. So this is your doctor's testimony, and you got to knock it out of the park, because 9 out of 10 times, it's the only thing the judge cares about when he reviews the file is, what did your doctor say? What did their doctor say? And which doctor is acting more reasonable and has a more rational and believable argument, and did the insurance company act unreasonably in their review? So there is a whole set of videos that we've done where we talk about if you lose the appeal and what the thresholds are at trial, whether it's arbitrary and capricious or a de novo standard review. But it's important to be aware of that standard review when you're doing an appeal, because it affects the manner in which you're going to write the appeal, knowing what you're going to be up against at trial. And that's certainly something we can discuss with you if you contact us to discuss your claim. But Stephen, once you put together this whole appeal and you take your medical, you take your vocational, you take all your arguments about what they may have done already that's unreasonable within their review or things that they missed, and you submit it to the disability carrier, how long does it usually take to get a decision back?
They'll have 45 days under the law to provide you with a decision, with the possibility of another 45-day extension. So generally 90 days at most. Normally it doesn't go beyond that, but there are situations that arise where what's known as tolling of that time frame occurs, where if you submit additional information, they're going to have additional time to be able to review that. Or now ERISA requires that after you submit your appeal, if Northwestern's doctors, new doctors, have negative information for you, they have to give you the opportunity to respond. So they'll give you a certain amount of time to have your doctors respond to it. And during that time, there's a tolling. So that time frame to review is kind of, put on pause. So that's why, too, it's also so important when you submit your appeal that you really have everything. Sometimes people just write the letter and say, I'm going to be sending more stuff. And the insurance company goes, okay, well, we won't start our review till you have everything to us. So it's always best to get everything you can up front and get it over to them, so there is no unreasonable delay in getting you your decision.
And Stephen, is there any limitation to anything that you can put into your appeal? Meaning, is there any rules of evidence that apply that someone should feel like, oh, this is hearsay, or this is not admissible, or this is going to limit me? Is there any limitations at this stage of the claim?
No, realistically, there's none. I mean, I'm sure you could think of some wild, crazy things, but for the most part, no. We'll submit photos of, how the condition affects people, sometimes video testimonies, expert, reports written by experts in a certain field, things like that. So this is your opportunity to really pile on the information that's directly related to you, and even ancillary information, whether it be letters of support from friends and family, former coworkers, that stuff. There's really no limitation what you can submit to them.
So, Stephen, I know we only just scratched the surface on how to, do the appeal and handle one, especially when it's Northwestern Mutual. And every claim is very, very fact specific because of the medical condition and the definition of disability within the policy and your occupation. So there's so many factors. What we encourage you to do is to contact us for an initial free consultation. We will need a copy of your denial letter. We'd also like a copy of your policy as well. Once we get that, we can provide you with an immediate consultation on the phone where we'll let you know immediately how we can help you. Our clients are located all over the country, so no matter where you live, we welcome the opportunity to work with you. We also encourage you to spend a little bit of time on our website. You can look up Northwestern Mutual to see our experience in handling cases against them, as well as cases around the country that we've summarized. You also can look up by your medical condition that's disabling you or by your occupation. And we offer a lot of claims tips through articles and videos that we've done just like this. On our YouTube channel, you can see that we have over 600 videos, and we produce multiple videos on a weekly basis to provide you with tips that will hopefully help you with your claim, whether you've been denied, or you're on claim, or you're just trying to get on to claim now. So we look forward to the opportunity to speak with you in the future, and we'll be here should you need us. Thank you.